baby bards. I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearth Singer, the head bard in charge around these here parts, and you've made it. You've made it here to Hearth Singer Games. Here on this channel, I make tabletop RPG focused videos and product reviews. I give my tips for running and playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and Starfinder, and of course, I tell a few stories from my own adventures at the table. Like you've been crying a lot is definitely the look for Strahd. And if you stick around long enough, you might hear me burst into song. And don't you dare look away. 'Cause I need you to know I'm gonna go back that arc fay. At last can rest his weary bones. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun, wandering free. Wish I could be part of that world. What would I give? Make that you will hear me burst into song. You might also recognize me from over on Twitch, where I embrace the spirit of adventure. Okay. You know who's not gonna go first? The wizard. Oh God! Terror. The little like thing sticking. Oh my God! There's this lucid right there. Oh God! Oh, where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go? Oh, God! This is fine. This is fine. This is fine.
And aren't you supposed to, like,
you know what?
And shit?
Okay, put your little mouth away. Put your little mouth away! Let the existential dread creep in. What can I say? I'm a girl who wants to decorate her fake world because she has nothing else to live for. Did I say that out loud?
Away we go.
And roll some dice in some tabletop RPG actual plays.
Do you want to be defined as just identifying things all the time?
No.
How's it feel? How's it feel?
Bad. You make me feel bad. I feel bad.
I also like stars.
Stars are
Me too, says Amaruk, and she comes over and like this big wolf just shrinks down into the little like hunchy thing, like how we used to talk to kids at Ren Fair when we get down with them. It's like me too, and it's just the biggest anime grin and sparkle eyes ever. What kind of stars do you like?
Spark twirls the ends of its whiskers.
Yeah.
All of them.
Me too. Oh my God! All in all, I spend my whole life trying to make a boatload of riveting content for you out there, the baby bards. So if any of that sounds up your alley, subscribe to my channel for weekly videos and new adventures beyond every horizon. Welcome to Hearth Singer Games, where I live my quest life. Welcome, everybody, to a fabulous new Friday night here on Hearth Singer Games. We're doing things a little bit different. You might notice we're doing a stream at a different time. You might notice that it's a whole new layout here. It's all crazy. I've been working really hard on it. So thank you for everybody who's let me know over the last 2 days that you like the new layout. But you also might notice that I'm saying we. May I present the entire group? Whoa, who are they? Oh my goodness. A reveal.
Who are they indeed?
That was so dramatic.
Guys, I am so thrilled to have my friends Christopher Gravenstine and Emily Floyd here for our first episode of Around the Hearth. This is Hearthsinger Games, in case you didn't know where you are on the internet. I'm Anne Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge around these parts. And this is a talk show where me and my besties talk about the many roles of tabletop RPGs in our storied lives. So let's get some intros from our co-hosts. Chris, you're back.
I am back. I am here.
But look,
Tell-
Where did I go? Where did I go?
But
Oh yeah,
look,
tis my face
for the first time.
I was just saying,
For
is
the
this
very
the first
first time.
Time has been on the stream? Like,
Yeah, it is.
You
Not
know,
just your
it
voice?
is on a Friday. It is on a Friday.
Oh, yeah.
But he was in our. Emily Floyd subscribed.
I
Thanks,
just saw that.
Emily.
I was like, way to like call yourself out there.
what? It's my 11-month streak.
Oh my God, that's a big deal. So
Big deal.
we're gonna get there because we've had a couple important subs come through chat. Let's not think about that sentence too much.
That's fine. All
We've had
subs are
some subs
important.
come through chat. Every single one.
Mhm.
God bless them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Emily and Chris have been hugely supportive of my move into content creator zone. But before that, we were just a couple of crazy kids playing D&D 4E many years ago. Right?
I remember it well, like it was
Kinda how
yesterday.
it started.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday.
40 years.
It's so crazy.
Did you say 40 years
Uh,
ago?
40 years
Yeah.
hence, here we are. So first of all, it's great to have them. I'm all over the place, guys, because I'm
You
too
are.
excited about the subs. Emily, thank you for your 11 months of sub, and special shout out to Analog Amber, who just reached their 12 months of subscribing to the channel, which is so awesome. And I'm just so appreciative that people have kind of stuck with this from the beginning. Whether or not they can make every stream, it's like always grand when you all pop in and say hello, and it's awesome. It's just great. And my hope, because I had a lot of really strong reactions to the initial version of this, which was a podcast on my like a weekly podcast on my Patreon, was that we could roll out to everyone and make it a little bit more varied in experience, because I think while Emily and Chris and I have played together for many years, we also have different opinions about a lot of things in tabletop, and so I think it'll be we'll have a Thunderdome and argue and kill each other. But Emily, why don't you, or no, Chris, you finish introducing yourself. When did you start playing D&D?
Tis I. So I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in college. I didn't really know. I've been like a big gamer like my whole life, but never in like tabletop stuff. And in college, I had this buddy named Dan, and he was what we call a day walker, where like he was the biggest nerd amongst us, but like his forward-facing persona was like preppy, like stock tradey guy, like pop collar, like the whole nine.
Ugh.
And so
I mean, great.
yeah, no, it's fine.
Sorry.
Like, live your best life. But it was just so funny because he like secretly got us into anything. But anyway, I digress. But basically he was like, hey guys, have you ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons? Pulls book out of trench coat. And
I got Dungeons and Dragons. You want
want
to
some
see
players handbooks? So we started playing like 3.0, 3.5 in college, and that was sort of the beginning of the end. My first character, Ermac, the human monk. I miss him well. He died when a siege tower fell on him. Good times.
Classified Styles wants you to know, Chris, that your stash is so good.
Oh, well, thank you. I had to trim it. It got a
Really
little
good.
out of control.
No, never out of control. The longer and twirlier, the more enticing
Well, see,
it
I have to get it
becomes.
big enough that it loops back in on itself again.
Yeah, there's a special length,
Yeah, no, it's
as
the
there
magic
are
line.
with so many things. Emily
There's
Floyd,
that sweet spot.
how did you start playing D&D?
Let's see. I started playing D&D with you two. Right, Chris? I'm trying to
Yeah.
think if there was a situation before.
No, I
Well,
mean,
So infamously, I think it was probably in like 2009, there was a party where we were going to play D&D for the first time. I rolled a character and everything, but then we actually didn't get around to actually playing. So I think our first campaign was that Anne's first campaign as well, the one back with Michelle and
And he who must not be named.
Yes.
Yeah, he shall be human, not be named.
Who's
We love you,
like
whoever you are.
definitely not watching the stream, so I think we're okay.
Definitely not.
Definitely didn't get turned into a statue and then shattered and then vomited on. That didn't happen.
That was Michelle.
I know
that
it was.
happened
It was.
But he was the one who
he was the
who
perpetrator.
engaged in the harmful activities.
And
It's not PvP.
yeah. And yeah, like we were all pretty hooked, and it's kind of funny. Like we were playing 3.5 at that point, right? And it's crazy to imagine that from that game, from that moment, like who knew, Anne, that D&D would be like our lives, our careers.
As the person who introduced you to the hobby, it's funny that I'm the only one who's not working in the industry. But I digress.
It's true. And everybody knows about like me and what I do because you're looking at it. But Emily, tell the people what you do in your day job.
So I work over at Roll20. It's a virtual tabletop. If you haven't heard of it, it's a website where there's nothing you download, nothing you need to install on your computer. You just log on with your friends and you can play any tabletop game. Like obviously D&D's there, and there's a lot of other options available, and that's kind of my bag. I'm the director of licensing, so I work with publishers to bring other games and other titles onto the marketplace so people have more options to play when they come to Roll20.
Awesome. Yay, Emily. Yay, Roll20. It's happening. Analog Amber says, best virtual tabletop. Them's fighting words.
No, I love this.
So go ahead. Caldefron46 says, I have a shortcut to Roll20 on my desktop.
Caldefron is a valued user of Roll20, I must say.
I had to teach my dad how to use Roll20, so what I can say is even old elven druids can do it. If he can do it, so can you.
I was gonna say weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, sure. And Smoggle says, currently running a Pathfinder 2e adventure path on Roll20. It's amazing.
I'm so happy to hear that so many people love it and use it.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
I just learned how to set up, so I use the preloaded campaigns. This is not #sponsored, but just so you know, these are my real feelings. Just, even though Emily is here, she's not my keeper. I say and do what I want. But you can trust that I was very excited to learn how easy it was to create dynamic lighting on my own maps. Because I was like putting it off for the Patreon only game that I do. So I do shameless plug for my own thing. You'll see at the bottom of the page, I actually have a Patreon. And part of that is access to sign up for Patreon exclusive Dungeons and Dragons one-shots with featuring me as your dungeon master. And so I was like, wow, I'm gonna actually have to do dynamic lighting myself, and I was actually pretty shocked to find how easy it was.
I will say that I used Roll20 way back in the day, and I haven't really revisited it until Emily arrived there. And one of the things that blew me away the most was when I tried to set up that dynamic lighting. It was just intensely cool for no real reason.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things that I think, and then we'll get into our actual topic for today, which you can see in the corner. I think it's this corner of the screen. But I know I put it on there. It's on there. But yeah, one of the things that I really like about it is the fact that people have to commit to movements. You can mark it so that they can't see until they drop their token.
Yeah,
it's kind of like chess.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you go there? There's no way to be like, well, I didn't go there. No, I didn't. I back up because I can see that you went there.
Are you sure? You've seen it
now.
now,
You will
so.
suffer. Yeah. So let's dive into it. We've talked a little bit about us, and I think there's always bound to be a little bit of banter at the top of the show here. But today's topic is very important. It's one that I pulled kind of a little bit out of a hat here because it's our first time at bat, and I was like, oh God, what are we gonna talk about? But we are gonna talk about the role of Dungeons and Dragons, and for that matter, tabletop RPGs in general, in our mental health. So before we get started, I just want to put out a little bit of a disclaimer because we are not mental health professionals. We are not going to be giving you advice here, nor should we give you advice on how to confront your own mental health challenges and journeys, or what you could do to improve your mental health from any type of perspective that is official. So keep that in mind. We encourage you to seek out professional help for that. Several of us do it. And we are more than happy to talk about how tabletop RPGs have affected our own mental health, both positively and negatively. And if you have questions for us while we're chatting about this, because some of you are listening in the dark by yourself, that sounds weird, but later on a date that isn't today, via my Patreon. But most of you or some of you now are watching live. So those people have the ability to send us questions in the chat, and I'll sort of use them to guide the conversation. But we're going to start off by me sort of posing a question to Chris and Em, which is how does playing tabletop RPGs, how does that affect your mental health positively? How is it a good thing for you?
I'll start. For me specifically, it's all about the interactive experience with my friends, with the people that I'm playing with. I think that's one of the things that draws me to it in particular. Like, I'm such a, like, I thrive. It's weird because I'm an introvert, but I thrive so much on other people's energy and like recharging with like friend excursions or events or like little house parties and things like that. It's what's made the pandemic so difficult, is because we're fortunate to have a little isolation bubble and get to like see a human. But it's definitely one of the things that I've been missing out on the most, in terms of not being able to see people. To me, the key draw to playing RPGs is always like getting to interact with people, getting to spend time with people, to sit down with people and just play. So on the days where you're feeling really lonely or you're feeling really like you are in a low spot, like sometimes that can just be such a bright spark to have that chance, to have that opportunity to like just get together with your friends and just play. And like it's sometimes like, and maybe I'm jumping ahead to like a future question, so sorry, but
no, this is a natural conversation. You don't be afraid to talk about something connected to that thing.
Because I'm thinking about how like, so we play D&D together regularly, the three
Yeah.
of us with a couple other friends, and there have been so many times where we've like had, it's like our weekly Monday D&D night, and we get together and one of us is just like, I can't do it tonight. Like sometimes you just want like conversation instead, and we'll just like you know, just chat for the night and then call it
Right.
an evening
Yeah.
from there. Or sometimes we'll be like in the middle of it and be like, someone will be like, I just can't do this right now. And that's totally fine too. Like, I think it's not the only way to like spend time or like boost your mood with friends, but it definitely can be something to help you out when you want to escape. Like if you've had like a really rough day and you're like, I would just really like to try a different world, be a
not
different
be me.
person.
New reality pose.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I not be
Next.
me? Yeah.
Well, Chris, how do you feel about it? How does it affect you?
Well, it's a little different for me, I think, because I've been like, you know, hashtag forever GM in my campaigns, because I got most of my friends into it. And from that perspective, it's a big thing for me because it is a really big creative outlet. This is the positive side, obviously. Yeah, it's a really big creative outlet, and I get a lot out of like facilitating the enjoyment of others just as a person. And so like being able to set up a world and an adventure that my friends can just sort of lose themselves in and like have a good time in, I get a lot out of that. And also I get to sort of just like flex my creative chops with coming up with interesting, you know, scenarios and characters and things of that sort. And that is a big part of it for me. Yeah, and to touch
Well,
on, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to ask you about that more specifically. So I know, I mean, ever since we've known each other, you are the, not in the weird negative way that the literary reference I'm about to make is going to make it sound, but you are the Mrs. Dalloway. Like, you really get a lot out of being the host.
Yeah.
What is it about that like recharges you and rejuvenates you?
As I guess as someone who personally like has a really hard time with failure, it's, and also not like I have like a competitive spirit, and so part of the reason I've found that I don't actually enjoy being a player that much is because as a player it's possible to lose.
Yeah.
But as a GM, you're never, since I'm not the kind of GM that frames the game as me versus the players, which in my opinion should never be the case, but since I don't frame it in that way, I'm never losing, and I'm always just facilitating a good joy and a good time. And so just to know that I can craft something in my imagination that I could literally just sit back, like I can just like set the table with a delicious meal, and then I get to watch all my friends eat that meal that I just cooked, and it feels good in the same way as the analogy. And it feels good. Well, because like, it's like there's that moment, like, you'll see the memes where like there's that moment when you're sitting at a table where everyone is very engaged in their character, and you've created a fun scenario for them, and you as a GM don't have to interact for maybe a long stretch of time as you just watch your players get lost in this world that just exists in the collective collective unconscious of the world.
There was a time where Emily and I decided that what we needed most was to help a tavern, a guy who owned a tavern, put on a one-man show.
It's honestly one of my
open a black
favorite,
box theater.
Yeah, it is like my favorite.
Yeah.
One of my top 3
It was
like RPG stories.
Yeah, there was a dude who owned a tavern, and he was like a aspiring bard, but he couldn't do it because his only income was this like ramshackle tavern that he inherited from his parents.
And Anne Richmond and Emily Floyd
Yeah,
were like,
and
we
so
can bard.
all he did was
We're not playing bards, but we know
Let's
how
plan
to.
your opening night. There was a step and repeat. There was a dress code.
Yeah.
Like,
he
We
just
should
did
honestly
spoken
put
word.
this on
cocktail.
like we should
the-
put this on an events like resume for ourselves because we killed it.
Bet-
we party
best-
planned the crap out of that.
Best use of druid craft ever. It was creating a like flowers and wreaths and wisteria as like the step and repeat for people coming in for the premiere show. That was really
The
solid.
poor painter who had to just, ooh,
Yeah.
there you are.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of details in those flowers.
Yeah.
I've also found that Emily generally in every campaign she likes to start a business or help out struggling
you're right.
entrepreneurs. Like
You're right.
everything ever. You start you start a business, you hit on every woman that I introduced to the party, and you help out struggling entrepreneurs.
I guess I don't really like my combat. My favored combat is capitalism. Like, I don't know. Like,
No, I mean, well, there was that one campaign where like
favorite terrain.
we had like some covetous members of the party who were all about the treasure and the loot, and you basically had them you put them in a situation where they're like, I will only help you in this mission if you donate 20% of our proceeds to the local orphanage. and then the orphanage like opened up a wing, in honor of you guys, and it was a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like me. Anne, I'm curious to hear what your like take on it, like how you feel playing tabletops improves your mental health, or is like a good thing.
Yeah.
In that vein.
I mean, I think there's certainly been a change, not necessarily positive or negative, just like a shift in perception within the last year, only because I am running games as a professional DM and then also playing in games, some of which are recorded actual plays, which I know, Emily, you do a bunch of as well, and some of which are just mine and my table, and all of which are now, except with the exception of the game that we play fairly regularly, are all online. I would say that for me, like, being someone who really feels the need to tell stories and to explore being other people, I don't think it's I do I do joke a lot that I'm like, can I please be someone who isn't me for as often as possible? And I generally like pretty much like my life, so it's not that I want to escape being Anne Richmond completely, but I, as someone who is an actor, and Emily also went to art school as well, like I love being in a scene with somebody and like sitting in moments, and some of them are funny and joyous and some of them aren't, and all of that is rejuvenating to me. I find something that I've sort of discovered in the last year, I guess, maybe year and a half, is that it really depends on the character I'm playing how long I want to spend playing them. And that's I think something that comes up for people if like D&D isn't doing it for you. It might be that you've chosen a character whose backstory is like too close or too hard to deal with. I know we had a mental health conversation, which we do like fairly regularly at our table, about like how often we should play and, you know, what our play has looked like and how we might need to change around some things. And, you know, I'm not going to put anybody on blast at the table, but I will say that like my big thing was I really needed to change the way that like I was being treated in the party, because a lot of it was around like the comedy around me being like sort of the boss or the nepotism character within our campaign. And so a lot of it had to do with me just being the foil to everybody else's fun, which started, even though I knew it was all in character, to like affect me at the table. I was like, I'm just keeping everybody else from having a good time. That's just not a fun mental space to sit in.
Yeah. In almost every game I've ever played, it's funny that you bring that up, because in almost every game I've ever been involved in, there is always one member of the party that I find ends up being like the whipping boy. Like, there's always someone picks a character trait that everyone else's like chaotic energy sort of latches onto, and they become the straight man for everyone else's hijinks. And in doing so, they kind of become they sort of get like low-key bullied, or at least just like being like, you're just like someone makes a choice to like play a paladin, a character that has like a very defined moral compass, like a character class that has a very defined moral compass, in a party of like bards and rogues and like necromancers and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, anytime the paladin wants to like play their character and like make choices, everyone else is just like, you're such a party pooper, we just want to blow things up. And I mean, that's hyperbole, but it's interesting. I find that always happens. I don't know if everyone else's experience is sort of typical.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, let us know in chat if anybody has had that experience and how you dealt with it. I know what we did was we all had a conversation, and like everyone got to express their feelings and talk about like how we could, you know, change that moving forward. And I think that's something that doesn't happen often enough. Like at work, you have quarterly meetings where you talk about like, how's it going? And I feel like that should be kind of normalized at your D&D table if you're playing something that's been going on for a while.
If you're playing Ac Inc, it's never been easier to like have like, can we have like a catch up at like 3? Is everyone free from like 3 to 4?
We can submit our quarterly reviews. Let's have a stand up about how this is going.
What are like growth places for you as a bard? No, it's I meant to say earlier, because we got on that tangent about all those crazy stories, and then it's like that, but that is exactly what gives me life as at playing Dungeons and Dragons, is years after the fact, like in some cases upwards of a decade later, me and Emily still tell stories about one of like our first biggest campaigns playing Dungeons and Dragons, and the fact that like I was able, like obviously it's a team sport, but knowing that like I had like a large part to play, that I was a large part to play in that game that everyone just always wants to talk
Cherishes.
about.
You're a memory maker.
It lives forever. That's the most Disney thing you've ever said, Emily. You're a memory maker, kid. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, I guess, like what pulls you down negatively when it comes to like mental health and role-playing games, because we've all had those experiences. I already talked about the fact that like if I'm playing a character that I really jive with and really love being, then I could play for 1,000,000 hours. And if I'm playing a character that suddenly I don't like being in that mental space, it's happened to me like twice. There's a very limited amount of time that I can spend the 3 hours that we've allotted to play in that character, and then I don't want to be them anymore.
I'll go ahead.
Please.
First this time, but like I wanted to say it before because Emily touched on it a little bit. What can happen with D&D a lot is that it becomes a job, right? And it's like there's a lot of pressure, since like when you get right down to it, it's just a combat simulator with improv theater mixed together. So like there can be a lot of pressure depending on the kind of table you're at. There can be a lot of pressure to perform, to be present, to be engaged, and to be in that world, and to be immersed in that world. And that can sometimes feel like a job, especially if you play like every week. And I know that most people I know that play Dungeons and Dragons have like a weird brain space about like where D&D exists in like their time, and they always feel like it's just too much to like, it can be very burdensome to just think about having to like dedicate your mind to this thought process for this long. And once again, your mileage can vary, but like I found, but I'll say personally, the thing that drags me down is actually, it goes hand in hand with that, because as the GM, I never want to feel like I'm making someone play a game that they don't want to play. Like I want people to be like present and want to play, because it takes a lot of back end work on my part. So like,
you want that in general, though. I will say you are like the friend that I have who most often is like, can we all put our phones away? And I'm not giving you shit for that.
Yeah.
I just think that that's something that's really important to you.
Yeah, I just like it when people are present. Like you know what I mean? Like it's like that kind of thing where like you're sitting in a room where like you're in like a circle and like a bunch of people are having conversations, and sometimes you feel like if you just stop talking, no one would notice. And like, so that's not a good feeling in the world in general. And so like, if I've put a lot of work into like crafting this world and people don't want to play, that's fine. But I would say it drags me down a little bit when I just feel like I've somehow failed to create a game that people actually want to play. When a lot of times
let me toss it over to Emily and hear what you think. But be thinking, I guess, about, because I want to talk about like solutions, because I don't want this to just be like event sesh. Like how do we service those issues after we've kind of expressed them? So Emily, go for it.
What was the original prompt here?
You're like,
how? Where
Sorry,
did
I talked too much.
No.
No. I'm just. It
Thought
was
we
a
were
great
supposed to
point,
talk,
but
yeah.
I'm just trying to think back. So
So the question is really
what
just
pulls
like
you down, right?
What pulls you down, and like then when you're done, I guess how you deal with that, how you combat it.
For me, I mean, Chris kind of touched on it a little bit. Of what my issue is too. I mean, I think for me, sometimes this is a weird side effect of like working in the gaming industry, and I think you may be able to relate to this as well. We've kind of had this conversation in the past, is like it can start to like your gaming can start to feel like your job, and so then it's harder to enjoy it as like a fun time activity when like I work in RPGs all day long. Part of what I do at my job is to play RPGs. Like that's like such a big part of my everyday work experience that it can be like hard to shift my brain to being like, this is a thing I'm choosing to do for fun. So the weird thing is, since working in gaming, I think I probably play games less than I did before. Like I maybe not like quantifiably, because I'm on like actual plays and stuff like that, which is like in my brain like it's a different space when I'm playing for like entertaining other people versus when I'm playing for fun for me, which is not to say it's not fun, but like that's a whole nother thing. But like in terms of home campaigns, games with friends, etc., like right now is a time where I could be playing a lot more with people to connect with people because of the pandemic, but like also it's my job every day, so like if I did it too much I would just lose all interest. Like right now it's better for me to have like a special like singular game that I can really like pour love into, and then even then sometimes we get together and I'm just like, y'all, this isn't the night, I can't do it. I think too, like I think back to the funny thing is with the campaign that we're all playing right now, just to like we've referenced it a couple times, chat, but it's an ACK campaign, so it's very like workplace humor based. And I remember, not at my current job, but
The Office meets Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
is basically how our game feels.
Actually, facts. But I remember at in a different job, there was a day that I was like, or a time that I was like having a very rough time, and then when we would play, and it was all everything was like workplace related humor. There was one day where I just like hit a limit and I was like, I can't, this is normally fun and funny and great, and I'm like such a huge fan of the flavor and the humor of
like,
the acting campaign. Like at that time I was like, this is not fun for me and I can't live in this world right now.
And I think the important thing that all of us would likely agree on is that when that happens, we have gotten, I think, better and better at keeping track of where everybody is mentally at the table and checking in with each other. I would say, like, just like anybody, we made a few mistakes early on, like just kind of being like, well, that'll probably take care of itself, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
And continuing to push through because we didn't want to make anything awkward for each other, which is like a natural human thing to do. But more and more as we've grown, I find that we have like someone will look across the table and see that somebody is like not okay and be like, wait, can we stop for a second? Is everything okay? And sometimes that's definitely weird to be the one that everyone is asking, but I think at this point everybody knows that we all mean it because we just want to make sure everybody is like wants to play.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just burped into the mic.
Well, it wouldn't have been a big
That's
deal
a
if we
weird
didn't
ASMR.
talk about. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
specific.
Was it today?
Super gross.
Earlier today, I was like in a meeting and Chris was scooping the litter, and I was like, all the colleagues I was in a meeting with were like, "What is this?" And I was like, "This is cat litter ASMR. I hope you enjoy."
It does. The category doesn't get a lot of views on Twitch, but like it has its moments.
Oh my God. Well, let's dig into some questions from
Yeah.
chat while we're at it, because there are a lot coming through. My father, aka Caldefron 46.
All
Hey,
hail.
Lord,
all hail,
Moon.
Lord Caldefron. The staff, the living staff.
let's
of
help the living
Caldefron.
staff of Kildare.
We talk. That's speaking of memorable stories from a bygone age. So Caldefron says, doesn't role-playing allow you to try on different egos in the Freudian sense and to test different approaches in relating to others? I think it's healthy unless you retreat into it and don't confront the world in which we have to operate. I would say, yes, I do get to try on different walks of life, different problems, but that sometimes I made a bed and I realized too late that I don't want to lie in it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I was just going to say that as we are sort of talking about this, it's interesting how like unlike pretty much any other game I can really think of, playing Dungeons and Dragons is sort of just like being in a relationship with everyone at the table, and so you're constantly like setting expectations and then recalibrating to make sure that everyone is still okay with everything. And it's the same kind of thing. Like if you want to use D&D as like a thing where you want to do improv theater and lose yourself in a character and try on different personas, that's fine. But like if not everyone's on board with that it's just going to create like a tonal disconnect. Whereas if everyone else just wants to like be goofy and embrace chaos and roll dice and make big numbers,
Totally.
and both are valid, but it's about figuring out what everyone on the table wants. If I may give an example,
Please.
there was a time in one of the first campaigns that we ever played in 4th edition where we had one player, he who shall not be named, and
because we literally can't
We
remember his
literally
name.
don't
Yeah.
remember.
yeah.
It was Michael.
So no,
Oh, no.
henceforth.
Yes. Yeah.
So, henceforth,
You said it.
no-
Did you summon him?
yeah.
Is he
Hey,
in the chat?
Michael. No, I'm kidding. That's so creepy.
Henceforth known as Tom.
Poor Tom.
Malvolio Riddle. So Tom wasn't like wanted to play D&D, but then once he got in there, he just wasn't really sure what it was going to be. So he was just sort of like acting off of impulse of like his assumptions about what the game entailed and sort of fighting the energy of everyone else because it wasn't exactly what he thought it was going to be. He kind of was like a little murder hobo-y. He just wanted to get into combat. He didn't really care about the narrative. When I would do things like introduce situations where I was like, well, your character might die because like if you just like run in there and you don't care, you're gonna die. And he's like, it's fine, I kind of wanted to roll a paladin anyway. And
he did not care about his character, and I remember you sort of clutching your pearls and being like, I don't know how to
Yes, and
I don't know
How do I make
you
it
feel feelings
fair?
anymore.
how dare you? And one of my largest triumphs is I basically just took some time to try to figure out exactly what he wanted out of the game, and I zeroed in on that. And I back in 4th edition when we got to Paragon Paths, which was like the prestige classes that you got to from a level 11, which like crystallized your class a little bit more.
Remember
I-
Paragon Paths? Go
yeah,
ahead.
remember
Yeah, what
Paragon
a
Paths?
strange.
I kind of miss Paragon Paths specifically because of the way I handled them, which was I basically did one-on-one sessions with a person to take them on a quest
so good.
line that explained their leap in power and ability. And so he was a Warforged, and so he was like, I'm a robot, I don't care about dying. And so he wanted to do the Paragon path where like he basically got like a ton of modifications and it like basically completely changed his physical form to turn him into like this big war machine. So I was like, okay, how is he going to do that? I was like, well, he's going to build his new body. But in order to build his new body, I had to, whatever. Long story short, I had to meet up with a wizard. He needed to build his new body, so I had the wizard turn him into a human. so he could understand something. And then when he finished building his new body, he had to fight it, and in order to like beat its latent spirit and take over the body for himself. And in doing so, I was able to craft the narrative in a way through combat that he actually cared about winning. And since he was a human and I spent a lot of time describing all these new sensations that he had, and I was able to really connect with him in a way, and I made him fear death.
You're like, I did it. I made you fear the
I made
Reaper.
You fear God. But like in character, I was able to get him to a point where he actually like became invested in his character's journey in some way, and it was a huge triumph for me, because it suddenly something clicked with him, and he understood like why he should treat it like anything other than like a group of statistics.
Totally.
And I don't remember why I was telling that story, but
we were talking about like people's egos and experimenting with like not being yourself.
But that was just a good example of where someone at the table, that was a solution I was able to find. Someone at the table who
within the story.
Yeah, within the story, for someone who had very different energy than everyone else, and just sort of trying to find a common ground. And
another thing you did for me in that same game, because of that same player, was that I became for him like he would not let me have bodily autonomy in that game. Like he would throw me away. I was a gnome and I was a bard, shocking no one. And I was small, and he would like use his size against me. And I think at the time I don't think I realized that I was really triggered by that, because as a very short person, like that's something that really bothers me in life, and I didn't know how to express. Again, this was a time where I didn't know how to like stop the game and be like, I can't play like this. You have to stop doing that, you know. But I also don't think that at that age we would have been in a place. I mean, we had just graduated high school. We just graduated college, and I don't think I was in a place to be able to like confront that kind of thing head on. But like what you did for me through the same Paragon Path experience is my character was doing Path of Thunder, I think was what it was called. And it became like all of my music became about drums and rhythm. And I became like the host to a special thunder elemental. So I like had a storm inside of me at all times, and like for my mental health at the table, that was really helpful, because I felt comfortable changing my character's personality enough at that point to like stand up to him in those moments and be like, I might be strong, but I'll kill you. And that was a way that within the story you were able to sort of change the narrative for me and for Raiden as she became known. And that was really helpful. So that's something I think people as DMs can look for, opportunities within the game. So it can be a balance of like having a conversation outside of the table and having a conversation like in character, creating an opportunity like that.
Quick question for chat. We don't have to talk about it, but how do you feel about in-rolling for your parties? Like, do you think you should be able to roll persuasion to make another player in your party do something?
We argue about this all the time.
We don't have to talk about that. That's for chat. We're talking about something else.
That's for chat. Maybe that's like a whole other topic.
Chat,
let us know, because that would be a good episode about like PvP and how to handle it. Ilaria says, that sounds incredible. I think there's a ton of value in having open communication as a group. It's important to be on the same wavelength as you craft a story together, and I agree. Matt Will Jackson, hey baby. He says, number 1, Chris.
Yes.
Dear loser.
Dear loser.
Your mustache is especially twirled, and it looks wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
2, in this digital age, does it bother you when people rely on a digital device or spell lists or character sheets, etc.?
No, but they can't be trusted.
But they can't.
The thing is, I only have a problem with it because we are all slaves to these black mirrors, and I'm guilty of it myself. But when the thing is in your hand, you can't help but get distracted on it. And so while I personally don't like fundamentally have a problem with digital character sheets and stuff, it's true, man, it's true.
He loves his black
it's just that like I don't, and the thing is for me mentally, right, So the thing is, for me, I want to know that my players are engaged, and when someone's looking at their phone, I don't truly know if they're looking at their character sheet or, you know, looking at social media or something like that. And whether or not they're actually doing that, I will like invent that reality in my head and then just sort of like check out a little bit because I don't feel like everyone is paying attention.
Yeah. Totally,
Especially if I'm like giving like a big piece of exposition. That,
Sure.
but as a concept, I think it's great because math is hard.
And that's what I was gonna say for my mental health. Things like Roll20 and the D&D Encounter Builder and things that allow an ease of moving between, like fluidly between roleplay and combat and skill rolls and all of that stuff, both as a DM and as a player, I've found, especially within a context of the pandemic when everything is just, I would say, a lot, as just a full-on, I'm pandemic fine, as they say.
Pandemic fine.
Yeah,
my-
like...
Someone made a comment the other day that Pandemic Fine is a good drag queen name.
Yeah.
And
It's a good
that's all I can think about.
That's so good. But yeah, I think for me, you know, having, even though, as we all know, maybe you don't out there in the dark, but I love collecting dice of all kinds, whether it's like resin or stone or precious metal, all that stuff. And I know Emily and Chris, you know, enjoy celebrating their hobby in that way as well. But I, like, math for me has always been a problem. Ever since I was a child, I have a lot of like, I hesitate to say trauma, but like I've built it up in my mind as something that's really hard, and something that Chris and I struggled with in the beginning was like even just doing simple math, I would second guess myself, and I was moving way too slowly for Chris's liking, I think, back in the day. And it was really, really hard to just like move past a turn because I didn't know the game well enough. So I'd be like, wait, I do this. Wait, no, I don't. Wait, I do this. Wait, how does that work? And it was just so much back and forth and so much me counting on my fingers. And I started to like panic whenever it was my turn because I felt like I was like on the pedestal.
I think it was it during Pathfinder that we had to institute a timer?
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Oh, no, that wasn't Pathfinder. We just did that in general because combat was dragging on. So we're like, you have one real life minute to take your turn. And if you don't, then time passes.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
No.
The answer or the conclusion to my thought is simply that on the pro of our Black Mirrors and the technology that's out there right now, I like to have that responsibility taken from me, of like adding everything and doing all the things, especially when I'm playing a crunchier system like Starfinder or Pathfinder, because that allows me to focus on the fun parts of the game, and especially as the GM, or as Chris has put it so aptly, as being the host of this party, I need to be able to move through stuff and pay more attention to the players at the table than I am to, you know, what's behind the DM screen. Emily, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, you work for a company that favors tech.
I work for a virtual tabletop, so you're definitely not going to hear me say anything disparaging about using digital tools to play tabletop RPGs. But that being said, like I'm definitely on the side of I like a little column A, a little column B. I love the physical dice. Like I love everything associated with the in-person experience, definitely. But the
physical act.
Yeah, but I love
D&D.
I love the tools that help out with that. And it's like, Anne doesn't need anyone.
Yeah, no, she doesn't. She's just like, Emily's like talking and she's like, I'm gonna make a joke and now laugh.
It was about what she was saying.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure it was.
Please
It's fine.
take the floor.
No, it's fine.
Anne just loves D&D so much.
Listen, this is Hearth Seer's
really
world. We're
do.
just living in it.
Who doesn't love a little light role play?
There you go.
Anyway, moving on.
So yeah, I like a tool that helps facilitate it. I mean, I think for us, like a lot of us use our cell phones at the table right now to have our character sheets, or sometimes to do our rolling, and that's makes things go faster, which keeps you more immersed, but at the same time gives you the temptation to check social media. So like, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really feel strongly about like hating any one option. Like I just feel like everyone kind of needs to work out what's best for them, and and go from there.
Well, so let's talk. Okay, we've talked a little bit about how D&D can be both like rejuvenating, how it can be sort of a draw negatively on mental health. Is there like, I guess, a particular time when you realized D&D was a mental draw for you guys and you needed drain for you guys and you needed to find a solution to that?
When like you're saying when like D&D was like a lot and I needed to like like when I was burnt out essentially.
Yeah. Like how do you combat burnout? And then I have a question from the Magic Llama that I wanted to ask. So we'll kind of lightning round this one because we've talked in and out of it a little.
We normally just kind of take a break from the game.
Yeah.
Or I've heard that a lot of people, I've never done this myself, but some people will just like rotate out. You know what I mean? Like if we have like you're burnt out creatively writer's blocked or whatever from GMing for too long, be like, how about we take a break from this campaign? We do play a different system or do something else and someone else GMs. And then I can just show up and play the game. I don't have to like be so responsible. Because like I think you made that comment once that like you play a lot of D&D, but you're almost always GMing nowadays because like you run it and things like that. But then when you come to play at our house, it's like a game that you can just show up and then just be a character. You don't have to like prepare or be mentally like.
That ties into, I think, what Helena asked about here. She said, is there a large difference in y'all's experience in brain space mental health between playing a game for fun and playing a game for an outside audience, which is something every single one of us has done at this point, at one point or another. And yes, absolutely there is. Because it's not like I'm coming on here trying to get canceled on the internet, but like I like to have a place where I know my friends are always going to assume the best intent of everything that I say, as opposed to when I'm on the internet telling stories, you know, with or for you guys, I'm thinking about like, how do I please you? What's the best path to, you know, a good story, which I guess I'm always thinking, but there's a lot more pressure on it. There's a pressure on the timing of the game and the flow of the game, and we have to end at a particular time, and, you know, I can't say this because, you know, it like is not going to be received the right way, or, you know, I have this joke in my head that I think is funny, but I'm not going to say it because it's going to disrupt from the game, or, you know, all the like fun things about just existing in a space in a room with your friends that you kind of have to tamp down a little bit on when you're in a performance space, and especially when you're playing online in general.
Yeah.
So they live in a different place.
I love rather the banter, like the casual nature that can happen when you're playing at a table, where we'll be like in a scene and then someone makes an inside joke or a reference to like a conversation we'd all had before or a piece of media that we all love. We can break out for a second and be like, oh my god, wait, can I just tell you all what happened at work today, like just real quick, and then we'll launch into a story and then we get right back into it. Like just the flow of like what does everybody need in the moment is so much easier and smoother when you're just playing for fun. And for me, when I'm playing on an actual play, like on a stream, it's way less about my personal experience and more about how can I be an engaged scene partner for the whole thing and just keep the story moving. Like I'm never making choices based on like what I as a player want to do or what I feel like my character wants to do. Like just me personally, like I'm always like, okay, what draws the story forward, or what will be the most entertaining like option for this next scene beat. Like that's not like a as relaxed a way to play. It's a different like muscle set and a different energy pool, I think.
Yeah. I also might, for me, like choose to engage in topics as long as everybody at the table is consenting that are a little bit more dark or challenging at a table with people that I know and am playing with privately than if I am online, because I, you know, as someone who has people fill out a consent form every single time they come to play, if you're in a Hearthsinger Games Patreon game or something like that, or any of my other professional games that I run, I'm going to have you fill out a thing and tell me what you want and don't want to engage in a story about. And I have, because I've seen so many of those come through, a pretty good sense of what like tends to be for most people yellow or red in terms of lines and veils. And so I'm more likely to completely avoid that stuff altogether at a table where I am being put on blast in a performative sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to talking to people about like, hey, my character has this kind of dark thing from her past, are you guys okay with engaging in that at a private table? Because even if the people at the public table are okay with it, I know that it's going to bother or turn off, 60% of the audience on some level. And I don't want to do that either. Yeah. So that's another way to think about it.
On the other hand, there's also the strange change to your energy, I feel, when you're in a situation where, if you're doing an actual play and you can read chat response, let's say, okay, in another world where we're back at conventions or whatever, and you're doing a live show in front of an audience, you have that audience reaction, and the Twitch version of that is seeing comments come in as people react to the things that you're doing, which we'll all admit drives the way we perform a certain way, or maybe the choices that we'll make to lean into those kinds of if the audience is really all about something, you might hype that portion up a little bit more to give people what they want, so you're entertaining them. And that's a different, it's kind of a positive energy, because it's nice to get that feedback when you're playing around the table. We don't stop to go wow, great rolls, that was a cool scene, wow, that was really well done. We don't compliment each other's
it's weird.
But
I feel like people should not because I need accolades, just I think I'm just so horny for everybody else's backstories at all times, and I don't think that that's everyone's feel at the table, but that's how I feel. So I get excited when people do cool scenes, and I wish that more people were able to be more appreciative of that. Chris, what are your thoughts?
On that, or the original?
Well, the original question, which was difference between actual play and.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't have as much experience with performative tabletop RPGs as you guys do, and I mean, I just always, the thing is I guess in the times that I've done it for an audience, I've wanted things to be a lot more cinematic, as opposed to there being moments super quiet moments, or super just moments between single characters, or spending an entire episode shopping, which can be fun, but not necessarily always be the most fun thing to watch. It's I was just thinking when you guys were describing it, it's your audience is just another character at the table, and especially when they're giving you feedback at the exact same time, it'll change the flow of the narrative, and you can key into things that they're enjoying. It's interesting because when I imagine, when I plan a session or an interaction or a character, I run this scenario in my head about how I think that's going to play out based on how I think my players will engage with that element, and then when it doesn't quite go that way, it can be a little hard to recalibrate. And so, and it's even more so where I guess I'll find that maybe I'll railroad my players a little more, because I know it'll be cooler if X happens, as opposed to rolling the dice on whether or not it might happen. So I get.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of round this out, because I think a lot of times I get frustrated when I go to panels to hear people talk on a topic, and I'm like, yeah, but what do I do?
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to turn around into something, positive for the most part. I guess I hope everybody listening to this is realizing how normal all their situations are, and that it's not, something that's come up for us is for me, D&D is generally, until the last year, always something that's super positive and that I can't get enough of, and it's not always that for other people. They need it at a specific time for a specific reason. So it's okay to have these different relationships, as far as mental health goes, with the game, and for them to shift as long as you talk about it, I guess. But how do you go about repairing a table that has that sort of negative gravitational pull? What are your methods for doing that?
I think for what we found is the secret sauce is communication is key. And this is one of the elements where I think D&D and tabletop RPGs in general can be used as such a powerful tool to aid in social situations. And we see a lot of that work in groups that literally utilize role-playing games to for mental health and therapy purposes. But even on the small scale of just our group of friends dealing with our day-to-day stuff in life, by crafting everything around our game, it empowers us to be that much more open about talking about what's going on, because these conversations about hey, you seem a little weird at the table, can turn into the conversations about listen, there's just like this thing that's going on that I didn't really want to burden everybody with, but like now we're going to talk about it. Like we've had the conversations take place like that, kind of organically, but also we've been empowered to sit down and be like, all right, everyone assemble. We need to discuss like where we're gonna go. We have a council meeting.
State of the roll.
Yeah, exactly. and we've talked about like, okay, so maybe the cadence of our playing isn't suiting everyone because it's too often for some, not often enough for others, and so we address that, or we say like, what are we missing that's making someone upset? How can we fill that in? How could, like as Anne mentioned earlier, like how do we adjust how our characters are interacting to make sure she feels more safe and comfortable at the table? Like that's like a group of like friends in their 20s and 30s, like sitting down and just addressing like their immediate emotional and mental health needs. Like it was for me a very proud moment that we all felt very comfortable to have and safe to have that conversation
and cared for in having it.
Yeah, like, exactly.
I think people are sometimes so afraid to start those conversations. They think they're going to ruin the magic. Like it enhances the magic. It makes you feel more cared for and more heard and more loved. I promise you.
It's a relationship. Like we keep on saying that, but that's the most important thing. Just like you would with any interpersonal relationship that you have with another person, it's about conflict resolution, like setting expectations, constant check-ins, sometimes taking a step back and giving people the space to really say what's on their mind, as opposed to just like phoning it in. You know what I mean?
Saying.
Yeah, because just like if there's something bothering my significant other and they're not talking about it for one reason or another, I'm just going to make sure that I give them the space that if they want to talk about it, they can. And it's the same way here. It's like you just make sure that the table becomes a safe space for everyone. And just like if people aren't into it, I don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons or any game where people feel like they have to compromise their fun or their mental state for the sake of everyone else at the table, because there's a world where we can all get what we want.
Totally.
So it's really just about having those what sometimes can be hard conversations, and it's funny because like you've talked about like you've played in a lot of games where you deal with like really heavy subject matters, and like it really kind of strips you down and you feel actual, like not just role play emotions, but like real emotions bubble to the surface. And being at a table with people where you can feel comfortable doing that is not an easy thing to achieve, and you can do that by just communicating a lot.
And the other thing that I wanted to say on top of these two things is like there's going to come a time, there's like a line in the sand, right, where you can be communicating and facing the table with an open mind towards like mistakes that are made and being able to move forward from them. That requires that when somebody says that they're sorry, that there's both an openness in your heart to allow them to, change and shift their behavior, but also like an expectation that they will, right? And to keep yourself mentally safe, if you find you're at a table where no amount of these conversations is helping and you don't feel safe, then like you should not be at that table. And that is another part of D&D and mental health, is deciding for yourself, because you won't always have somebody who's able to help you out or decide for you, and that sucks. You should find a table where everyone champions each other, but
no campaign is so coveted that it's worth making that sacrifice.
And I would also say that like another thing that's really helped me is like I think I hear from you guys a lot in the baby bards that like, well, I just can't keep a campaign going, it seems like, or we play for 6 months and then it falls apart. And like, that's totally a thing. So not trying to gaslight anybody here, but I think part of that is like looking at the machine you've created to pump out stories. Like, do you have the wrong people at your table? Is the wrong person GMing who's just not capable? Like it's finding people who can play with you. And I have lots of people that I love playing with for different reasons. I get different things from different tables, and that's totally fine.
I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for like a decade and a half, and I almost always play with some of my closest friends, and I have finished 2 campaigns ever. Like the amount of resets that we've done is numerous, because it's just like people just get, sometimes you just get tired of that character, you get tired of that setting, you get tired of the way that story is making you feel. And honestly, one of the best remedies is just starting over. And you don't always have to start from level 1. Like, it's always fun to roll a new character. Like, the most exciting time of any game is like, can be like when you first start playing it. It's like deleting your town in Animal Crossing, or rolling another character in or rolling an alt in World of Warcraft. Like, you played World of Warcraft for 15 years, you have not played one character that whole time, and like, why have you done that? It's to recapture that magic. It's to like reset that mental space about it. And D&D's no different, or any tabletop.
I will say that it is valuable though, because something that I talked about with Chris and Emily at a certain point is like, I got tired of the resets, because I was like, I put so much into my character creation. I want to play this character, goddammit.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think there's also value, depending on the comfort level of the table, that if somebody does leave for whatever reason, that you figure out a way to continue and finish out those stories and honor the creative energy that you put into them. You're just gonna have to figure out at your table what works for you, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I know I have like a block where it's all like, we started as 5 and we'll end as 5, and if anyone leaves, then it's all burn it to the ground. Like, I have a really weird thing about like the world continuing to exist if not everyone's in the room, because of like my vision. But it's important to know that like, what's the whole thing? Like, the world doesn't only exist when you're talking about it. So you're capable of like letting someone walking away from the table and continuing your narrative.
Emily, how do you feel about that? Burn it to the ground, or like, no, we keep going because it's not about you?
So, the thing is, right, Anne and I have very different perspectives about how we approach a new character in D&D.
Yeah, it's very true.
Anne is backstory queen, and will write 3 novels to make sure that all the information about her character is like,
and then I will never use it.
And I am.
That's another topic. Another Friday.
Yeah.
And then I am like the opposite, where I to a fault will come into a campaign with basically no backstory, because I like to kind of see where the story, like, where can I fit into the story with something interesting, and kind of like come up with it on the fly. And that's not to mean that my characters don't end up with like rich backstories or being integrated into the story. It's just I don't take pleasure out of doing all that, the prep work for the character. Like, I like to roll the character and then just kind of show up at the table and let the front story, energy and the story, the front story guide where my character goes. And I mean, I also have like a little bit of a cheat code where like Chris is often the DM for my games, and so I can let him use me and my characters as a tool if something needs to further the story. And I'm like, hey, you want my character to like have studied under this person, and so we go to their place. I'm not married to any like concept of like what drives my character.
But she is married to the DM.
I'll just go with the moment.
So that moving from that to what is going to be our topic next week for Valentine's Day, we're going to be talking next week about what it's like to play D&D with your partner. And I'm going to ask you guys a lot of questions, and we're going to talk about, like, in general, what it's like to play D&D with people who are like married or together in some way, because there are a lot of people out there who would say having partners at the table ruins the game, and other people who are out there who will say that's unrealistic, because why wouldn't I want to share something I love with the person or people I love most? So yes, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And surprise, Chris and Emily, that's what we're talking about next week. I decided it right before we went live and then forgot to tell you. Hey, welcome to the show. But yeah, I mean, to what you are saying, I think, the converse side of that is, and this is sort of a preview for next week, is that Emily's ability to be malleable, be moldable for Chris can then sometimes place her in the position that somebody who creates a backstory like wants to be, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because like I have tried on several occasions to work with Chris to integrate it to the story. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's like, I think being flexible in the way, you know, if you're going to be someone who depends on your backstory, this ties back into our current topic, which is mental health and D&D. You can't expect or need your backstory to really be executed in a particular way because your friends are not there to be your therapists. Like, table therapy is not appropriate. And I have been at tables where people have introduced themes suddenly of self-harm or any number of other themes that I'm very, very uncomfortable with having played out at the table. And like, that's not okay, in my opinion, is to just use your character as a vehicle to work through your own shit if you haven't already worked through it with a professional. So seek help to talk through your feelings. Don't use your friends in the D&D table, because it creates a really, I think, for me, when I've done it, it's made me like extra sensitive to things that are happening at the table, because it's not the character at that point, it is me on some level who's being hurt by the activity.
Yeah.
So that's just something I wanted to point out to all the people out there. Don't do table therapy. Just go to a therapist.
Yeah.
At their table. And with that, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Emily and Chris, do you have anything to plug this week? Anything we should know about?
Well, after this is over, very shortly after, like an hour and a half after, I will be heading over to Q Time's channel to be in the final episode of Changeling.
Is that already over?
Yeah, we do them in 4-episode chunks. So
Oh my
like
God.
this is episode 4 of Changeling. And then after that we'll be doing Mage. And then after that we'll be doing a very special season that I don't know if I'm like allowed to talk about yet. So
You don't have to. You can tell us next week if you can by
Well,
then.
So that's I'm heading over to Q Times to go be what I like to call Tahani if she were an elf. That's my
Nice.
character.
Nice. Nice. And it's things are going well. We just got a raid from Chiron Rustmore,
Oh, hey.
my dear friend and supporter of the channel, Chiron Rustmore, who you should definitely check out their channel. They've been playing through the Pathfinder Pathfinder Kingmaker game on their channel, which is just fantastic. And Chris, tell us anything you want people to know about you or where to find you or things you're doing.
I don't know. What you watch?
This literally happens every week.
You watch Emily's show.
Yeah.
Vote.
What's hers is mine.
I got a PS5. That's all I got.
That's great. Congratulations. I'm
Thanks.
so happy for you. Speaking of self-care. And I am Anne Richmond, and this is my channel. I do all sorts of tabletop RPG content, and I'm going to show you next week's schedule now. All right, let's talk about it, guys. You can now see it before you in stunning 2 dimensions because it's not virtual reality. So on Saturday, I am going to be at 3 p.m. doing Dungeon Master's Corner right here on Twitch. I will be basically focusing on session planning. We started this Thursday together writing a really awesome one-shot about a coatl named Squaddle and a unicorn named Chad the Vainglorious, and it's going really well. And all of that will be available to download once it is finished for, it says, my Thursday says 12. Yeah, don't worry. I'll get there, Magic Llama, because that is true. That is true. That is when that is happening. So Chad the Vainglorious and Squaddle the Coatl and their tale will be available to download via DriveThruRPG for pay what you can when it is finished. On Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, I will have another Dungeon Master's Corner, which will be all focused on character creation and NPC creation. On Wednesday, a new video drops, edited by the Magic Llama Mood, who is in chat right now. Bwomp, bwomp, bwomp. She is editing my video currently for tips for adding romantic roleplay to your D&D game. And then on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Glass Cannon I will be featured in the final episode of Tales from the Loop on New Game Who Dis. I'm really, really excited for you guys to see the end of that tale. Excited to be there again. Thursday at 12 a.m. Yes, that is correct. Early in the morning, the newest episode of the Lost Mountain Saga, which is a Nordic horror RPG that I play with my friends Ellie and Sid in the north of Sweden. It uses the Vaesen tabletop RPG system, which is by Free League Publishing, and I will throw the link in chat here momentarily because we have 4 episodes out already that you will not want to miss. And on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, another Dungeon Master's Corner. I'll be here creating a one-shot with chat on Twitch, and on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're back here talking about playing D&D with your partner. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to find somebody to raid. This has been an absolute blast. Please, if you haven't yet, give me a follow here on Twitch for more awesome TTRPG content. Smoggles, thank you so much for those community subs. Oh my goodness, guys. What a time to be alive. What a fantastic day. Thank you for giving us such a warm welcome with our brand new show. It's been so great. But yeah, we're gonna raid somebody. Make sure you go ahead and check out my YouTube as well, because I put out new videos every single week on the YouTube. All right, let me find, who should we raid? Let's find somebody. Oh, you know who we should raid? My friend Painting Pirate. I believe they are painting a miniature. It's in the name.
Painting
right
pirate,
there.
painting
Right
a
there in the
miniature.
name.
How?
I hope it's a pirate miniature.
Yeah, it better be.
Oh, you know what?
False
They're playing
advertising.
they're playing Final Fantasy. They're playing Final Fantasy online,
Final
which you
Fantasy.
guys love. So that's where
Final
we're gonna
Fantasy.
go.
Final
We're gonna
Fantasy.
go chill with them. So go tell Chris where you came for. Give me a follow here before you go, and we'll see you next time for another thrilling adventure. Bye, guys.